serious. What is the biggest gap you've seen between the technical skills someone listed on their resume, and their actual skills once they got the job? What happened when this gap became apparent? Lifeguards who couldn't swim. I worked as a lifeguard for the Red Cross at a pool between my junior and senior years in high school. About halfway through the season they started randomly testing people doing red hat drills. Someone wears a red swim cap and pretends to need help. Two of the girls, it turned out, were not only not even lifeguards but couldn't swim enough to make it across the pool. We hired this guy who listed 30 years of field experience in oil refineries to help with new plant commissioning. Part of the job is to take samples from locations at height. In this case, it was about 10 feet up. Every oil refinery has sample locations, meters, or valves in much higher locations. Turns out he was afraid of heights. He was given 3 months to find a new job. We had a new hire that claimed 12 years of experience. He could operate any piece of equipment on the job site and was a certified and qualified rigger. We could all tell he was full of shirts, but it was an entry-level job and we treat all new hires like they know nothing until we see otherwise. The problem was he was an arrogant know-it-all who responded to people trying to teach him with anger, and I already know that. He volunteered to rig a large vertical cylindrical object weighing about 3,000 pounds. A coworker was sent to peer check him but was cussed out for trying to help. The object had lifting eyes but was top heavy, so a sling was needed at the top to stabilize it. Instead of a choker hitch he used a single basket hitch and sent the load without a tagline. It was the only time in my life I've been terrified on a job site. If the wind would have blown, a dozen people could have been killed. Thankfully that was his last job with us. I hate for someone to lose their livelihood, but it's better he lost his job than someone else lose his life all in because his pride was worth more than our safety. Had a guy come in as a senior dev doing software development, but he couldn't code to save his life. We tried to help him out, but he wasn't good at taking feedback, improving or showing up when we tried to help him. He lasted about a month. Apparently he had a PhD in computer science. I'm sure he had great theoretical knowledge, but he had zero technical skill. Data entry. This was a bottom-of-the-barrel kind of job. All you functionally needed was to be literate, understand English or Spanish, and be able to use a keyboard and mouse. The amount of people, full-grown adults, who failed the first and third portion was concerning. Also annoying, since it meant often I had to pick up their slack. A certain water company had to employ a lot of new HGV tanker drivers. There were hundreds of applicants. HR shortlisted and 30 to 40 interviewed. One of the successful candidates was offered and accepted a position. On his first day he was inducted and then taken to the tanker he was to be allocated. On seeing this he said, "I can't legally drive that." It turned out he had not lied on his CV or in the interviews. Very embarrassing for HR and the interviewers. They paid for the guy to get the appropriate training and license in the end. I used to run engineering for a large company. Contractors were brought in by a third-party headhunter company, so oftentimes I would see a resume one day and would be training the person the next day. One day a new contract engineer started. The hiring manager I was working with claimed this guy had extensive experience. His resume certainly suggested it. Within the first week, I noticed that the guy was making elementary mistakes everywhere. His work was sloppy, disorganized, and oftentimes flat out wrong. He would get extremely argumentative even if I made soft suggestions on how to do things differently. One day my phone kept going off, and it was employees calling to complain about this guy messing with their files. I had to have a talk about proper file etiquette, and used it as an opportunity to retrain everyone in the department. I had a talk with the contractor on the side and told him that it cannot happen again. I had IT restrict his write access, and I would handle data mergers myself for the time being. The next day I had to fire him. He somehow found a loophole where he could still write to the network, and he somehow overwrote read-only files, later found to be a glitch in the software that he deliberately exploited, and overwrote the work of around 50 people. I got a call from a director who was furious. IT had to pull backups from 2 days prior, effectively wiping out the work that everyone had made for the past 48 hours, except for a few people who stored files locally, plus the time lost during the backup transfer. The estimated cost of that stunt was around $220,000. My favorite is having engineers with 20 years of experience join my team. Mind you, my team is composed of all data center engineers whom have an enterprise or MSP background. The issue becomes super apparent when they're asked to do projects and have no skill or comfortability with them. That's when we ask what they can do. After beating around the bush and probing, you find they don't know how to do anything at all. That's what 20 years of experience of internal IT doing nothing all day gets you. Needless to say, I am now a part of all technical hiring processes. Cook came in claiming to have worked in a Michelin star restaurant. Didn't know what a walk-in was, didn't know what julienne cut meant, then wrung out a rag full of grease onto the floor in front of another cook carrying a pot of hot fry oil. He also felt that washing any dishes was beneath him and refused to clean up at closing. I fired him before his second shift started. I worked with a guy who was a C-level director of a branch of a major company, had a gift of gab, and fooled everyone to believe he was competent, professional, all-knowing, and highly experienced. He literally didn't even know how to type, didn't know how to use a computer or printer or basic Excel or even basic Outlook, email. He used a physical Rolodex. This was in 2018. Eventually, he started using me as his personal dictation machine because his typing was jabbing pointer fingers onto a keyboard hoping to get through an email within an hour, and I knew I had to get the hell out. He was so charismatic that people didn't realize that he was just a narcissistic, delusional duckwit who knew just the bare minimum about the industry to act like he knew everything, shake hands with anyone important, and use his power to benefit only himself and make himself look good. Meanwhile, his branch of the company is falling apart because he's basically a fraud. He was also doing weird shady things with suppliers, siphoning money for himself. Later, I heard he was fired for sexual harassment of multiple young women interns. Just your average sociopath dirtbag who slithers in and out of regular society, creating havoc for everyone. I work at a company in a Hispanic country. We provide services to an American company, so English is a must for us. A girl got hired because she was either a friend of the recruiters or the boss. Don't know. But she couldn't speak a bit of English at all, so she was always trying to reply to emails using Google Translate and ignored every phone call. The company paid her English classes, but she eventually quit after our customers got super mad. Photo studio assistant didn't know how to use a drill gun, let alone photo gear. I'm completely out of ideas on why he still has a job. Working as a package handler, people stated they could pick up to 75 pounds at a quick pace while bending, standing or lifting. This lie became obvious quickly almost first day, mostly first week, apparent with them refusing to lift boxes after 2 to 3 hours during their shifts. They would quit then or just stop coming in until they were fired. Most of the boxes were 45 pounds or less. Occasionally, the heavier boxes were handled by stronger employees or in team lifts, and these people would still refuse to work. Graduate of Technical College for Software Support. Okay, save that to your local drive. What's a local drive? Your C drive. You can put it in Documents. And where is the C drive? Subscribe and thanks for watching.